Led by Senator Jim DeMint, a group of Republicans are now calling for a total ban on earmarks. Tea Party supporters may approve, and even Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is now signing on. But is this just squabbling over pennies instead of focusing on bigger issues like entitlement programs and defense? Here to discuss this is our Freedom Fighters panel, my friend and colleague, Fox Business Network senior reporter Charlie Gasparino, author of Bought and Paid For, Reason Magazine senior editor Michael Moynihan, and radio talk show host Leslie Marshall. Leslie, to you first. Will we always have earmarks, or will there come a time when the Congress will stop giving away bennies to their friends? And this is not, in my view, a Republican or a Democrat issue. Both sides have done it. Both sides have mastered it. Some have perfected long political careers by giving away federal dollars. What do you think?
Well, Judge, you know what they say payback is, and unfortunately, left and right, they got a lot of things and favors to pay back after they win an election. This is a waste of time. The voters have simply said to Democrats and Republicans the same thing. We want jobs, turn the economy around, secure our borders, etc. This doesn't do any of that. And I'll tell you something, Judge, when the economy's good, the American people are going to want their parks and their museums and their bike paths, and you know it.
Are we really quibbling over pennies, Charlie Gasparino? It's less than 2% of the federal budget. Is this symbolic or substantive that we stop this spending?
I think it's somewhat substantive because, you know, if you didn't have the Louisiana Purchase, you might not have bought out Mary Landrieu or whoever to vote for health care. And I think that's the problem with this stuff. And maybe did they, I don't know, did the Louisiana Purchase make it in the end?
I don't know.
I can't remember. But there was a lot of Louisiana Purchases in that bill.
No, he's not talking about Thomas Jefferson.
No,
he's talking about
a more recent Louisiana Purchase.
Repaving the streets of Louisiana to get Senator Landrieu's vote. And we're not just picking on Senator Landrieu, Leslie Marshall. But this is really repellent, isn't it, Michael?
It is, and I think there are 2 points here. The first one, you're right about 2 to 3% of the budget. It's nothing in the overall scheme of things, and we have bigger fish to fry in this with defense spending and entitlement spending.
Right.
But I think that there is an issue of payoffs here. What this encourages is people to, get their constituents or people in their constituency looking for goodies, and it corrupts the political process. And I think that that's a bad thing, to strike a blow against that if it doesn't have an enormous effect on the budget.
And by the way,
the other things, but that is a problem.
I think Leslie was wrong. We did have an election that people were worried not just about jobs, but about spending. And this,
that's what I heard her say.
No, I think she said number one, people want jobs.
The economy.
Yeah, the economy.
The economy,
but no,
2%
but we
is
had, Leslie, we had a popular revolt against useless spending.
Did the public speak very loud and clear 2 weeks ago? And if so, did they tell the government to stop spending so much money, Leslie?
Yes, but like you said, Judge, on the larger entitlement programs, not on bike paths, not on the earmarks, because quite frankly, this has been going on.
I think it drives people nuts to hear that a bike path was the reason why we got health care reform passed.
A bike path doesn't create jobs if we take it away.
Socialized medicine.
Charlie, it's a glorified bike path if you're talking about paving the roads of Louisiana. Right. It's a glorified bike path if you're talking about the benefits they gave Nebraska in order to win those senators.
But remember, it's the modus operandi of keeping big government big is to buy people out with bike paths and Louisiana Purchase and whatever.
Won't this always be with us?
It will always be with us, and I have to say that the bike paths are important. And the reason is you can give one example, is that everybody knows what the Bridge to Nowhere is. Outrageous projects like this, when they get into the bloodstream of the political discourse, people get angry about it.
Guys, stick around with us, please. There's magic in the air. A rabbit won't be pulled out of the hat, but billions of dollars will be printed out of thin air. This is not an act, and the final results will not be an applause. Our freedom fighters on the dire consequences from the reckless, irresponsible, secretive Federal Reserve. Next. Republicans, both in power and in the private sector, began a tough week this week. They want Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke to abandon his $600 billion with a B dollar bond buying plan, meant to help our faltering economy by weakening the dollar that's in your pocketbooks and your wallets and your bank accounts. But since Ben Bernanke and his Federal Reserve don't answer to anyone really, will he even pay attention? Back to our freedom fighters, Gasparino, Moynihan, and Marshall. Michael, to you first. This was considered fringe and crazy. 10 or 5 years ago to talk about returning to the gold standard, or the Federal Reserve shouldn't be monetizing the debt. It shouldn't be printing money. Now it's a serious debate.
It's a huge debate. I mean, look, I mean, this is inventing money out of thin air. People are a bit skeptical of that. But you are actually having people saying that, look, gold is, tripling in value. It's very strong. And, when you have people in Congress that are actually talking about auditing the Fed, again, fringe stuff.
I'd like to bring this conversation back to Earth.
Okay,
real
word,
talking about
a
getting rid of the
ridiculous
Fed
name called quantitative easing, basically printing money.
What they do is they go to the banks and they buy Treasury securities from the banks, or mortgage-backed securities, and the banks have capital, and they're supposed to lend.
Where does that money come from? Let me just ask you this.
Where does that money come from? I agree. This is a drastic step, but we should be calling. And by the way, he's not unaccountable. He has to be called before Congress. I believe the Humphrey Hawkins testimony is twice a year.
He shows up and he gives a lecture like he was at Princeton.
Why doesn't somebody, and I guarantee this Congress will do it, ask him, why are you taking such a drastic step? Because there we find out the failures of Obamonomics. He is deathly afraid of us going into a double dip
Leslie,
recession.
the new chair of the House Subcommittee on Monetary Policy of the House Financial Services Committee is Congressman Ron Paul. He has the subpoena power. What would you advise Ben Bernanke to do when Congressman Paul serves him with a subpoena saying, Mr. Chairman, please come and bring your ledger sheets, your books and records with you?
Oh, I don't know, Judge. You know the legal system better than I. Maybe like some of our former leaders just don't show up, and nobody will bother you. But I think the problem here is when you say, why is this being done to a layperson like myself when it comes to the economy, is basically, well, we want to stop inflation from occurring and keep interest low. Well, how much lower can you get when you're already down
Judge,
near the
you
floor?
are getting
and you're printing money to buy your own bonds. It just doesn't sound
One second.
right.
Do the Democrats want this done? Do the Democrats want $600 billion printed out of thin air with utter disregard for what it will do to the value of our...
You're getting so sidetracked. Judge,
Hang on, Charlie. Leslie, yes or no?
I'll tell you. Some do, some don't, and
Charlie,
some don't.
You are being
Judge.
so
they
sidetracked by what's going on here. Shouldn't someone be asking, why is Ben Bernanke, who's not a stupid man, who doesn't want massive inflation, I don't care what anybody says, why is he doing this? He's doing this because he's scared. He's doing this because he believes that Obamonomics has failed, that we are possibly going to a double-dip recession. Oh, of course he does. He would never be printing this money if he didn't.
He's
doing it for what you said.
No, he's not just doing this to do it.
Moynihan.
I will say this. It is incidentally QE2.
Right.
There was a QE1. How did we do on QE1? It was a failure. So is this politically, it's a last-ditch effort. They're grasping at straws, and I think it is incredibly bad policy and could have incredibly bad ramifications.
Leslie Marshall, Michael Moynihan, Charlie Gasparino, thank you very much. Back in a moment.